in liberating strife. Who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, make God thy gold refined, till all success be nobleness, and ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing it something like this. Listen here. Oh,
yes. Yes. Go for it.
What the fuck are you thinking? You fucking moron. Do I not need him?
No.
What?
I said, how'd you know?
Yeah. I mean, half of you have seen the complete sort of guts and the whole development of this. So that what we've been doing for the last 3 days is like starting on take 1, going to take 11, then take 14, and then finally this was take 15. And during that process, seeing single takes, you know, just sections of single takes, and then looking at the development, basically of a kind of choreographic approach to filmmaking, trying to get the cameras and the actors. Basically because of the process necessitated shooting it blind the first time, basically. And the entire script was written on music paper in the form of a string quartet, like a 95-bar string quartet, each camera taking a stave, because that was the notation system that I finally figured was the most user-friendly. And so I actually gave all of the actors the music paper on day 1, all, you know, all marked out with all the bar lines and some colored pencils and some erasers and stuff like that, and said, okay, I'm going to talk through the script, you know, stave by stave, camera by camera. And then they said, you know, we're going to rehearse. And I said, there's no way we can rehearse it without cameras. So let's make take 1 the first rehearsal. It will be a disaster, but it will learn a lot from it. So that's what we did. And I was telling my group that when they saw it, in fact, the funniest thing about take 1 was the earthquakes, because the actors really refused to take earthquake acting seriously until they were publicly humiliated by the screening. Also, the cameramen were like surf dudes from California, so they had 4 completely different earthquakes going. And they also, as I said to them, look, you know, the first earthquake is at minute 12 or whatever it is. That means minute 12. It doesn't mean like 5 seconds past minute 12. It has to be on the dot. They were all over the place. In fact, there's a lovely line I noticed for the first time when someone said, was that an earthquake? Did I feel something like... They suddenly remembered there was a cue. And so that the process actually necessitated everyone turning up. So we shot the film in the morning, and in the afternoon we would have a screening on 4 monitors, and they'd sit with their music paper and observe the chaos. And then notes were in the form of like looking at your bar line. So I'd say like bar 36, you know, Salma, you came in too early, you know, you should come in like 2 bars before that, which would be 2 minutes of screen time. Everybody had a very cheap digital watch, which we all set in a kind of cheesy sort of hippie ceremony, like exactly 1 hour before we shot the film each day. And that then became the main references. And as you could see in the set, there were a lot of wall clocks everywhere. So that actually was the process. It's the first time I've ever made a film where, you know, the actors and the cinematographers, I shot one of the screens, the 3 other cinematographers, were all equally involved because there was no choice from the get-go. So it sort of opened my eyes. You know, I made the film in the first place because I was kind of bored with the other kind of narrative, single film narrative. And basically what Mia Maestro says in her speech, I endorse exactly what she said, you know. But I had to actually go in and pitch this film to Sony Pictures. So I put the scene in because the head of Sony Pictures, who's a very eccentric guy, did greenlight the project. He said, would you do me a favor? You have to formally come in and pitch it to all the executives. And that was like one of the most bizarre meetings I've ever had in my life. Explaining there was going to be no cuts. It was 35 actors improvising. There wasn't a story. There wasn't a script. And, you could see all the guys from sales and from like VHS sales and everything just kind of like, I saw these guys at the back just going, what the fuck, So, in the absence of Wolfgang, I'll take a question.
As a director and writer, what social concerns motivate you in making time code, and what psychological effect are you trying to achieve?
The first part wasn't really a consideration. It was selfish, I just was interested in what you could do with the new technology, and I was bored with what I had been doing and what other people were doing with the mainstream technology, And films had been around for like 100 years, and it seemed to me they were getting quite boring, The second part, what I was trying to achieve, it was an experiment I didn't know. It was up until take one, it was in notebook form. I suspected that, and I wanted to see if you could maintain narrative without editing in a contemporary climate where an audience was actually addicted to editing and addicted to being fed new information all the time. And I wondered if, without cutting, I realized that you couldn't just do, a kind of 60s, cinema art house kind of slow takes and nothing much happening. So you have to feed the audience the information. So then the 4 screen. Originally I was thinking 2, and then I thought with 4, I went to 8, and I thought, no, it's too much. Back to 4, and then I thought, with 4, there's at least a possibility that you can keep something cooking, So the audience starts actually to edit with their head. They will make those choices about. Of course, having said that, they're not really making choices because I'm totally leading them by the way the sound is being mixed, So what I did tonight was a live mix. I was ducking and diving out of the 4 tracks, the main 4 dialogue tracks, the music tracks, and everything else, effects tracks. The film that was released obviously did have a final mix in it. And in fact, the most technically complicated part of making the film was the sound post-production for the cinema release. We shot, towards the end, we were shooting the film twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And I did suggest to the studio that we release, without telling the critics, we released 2 versions at the same time. Both version 14 and both 15 are very competent, and they do what they're supposed to do. So I said, let's release version 14 in Los Angeles and version 15 in New York. Let's have some fun and not tell the critics, but they wouldn't do it. I guess they thought it was too expensive too.